Hey everyone, welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're going really small, like cellular small, to explore the latest in bioinformatics and RNA sequencing.
Yeah, it's a field that's just exploding right now, impacting how we understand and treat diseases, even how we look at AI.
Reading these papers, I feel like I'm getting a glimpse into the future of medicine.
It is really remarkable. The power of RNA sequencing is that it can show us exactly which genes are active in a cell at any given time, like taking a snapshot.
So like a blueprint of what that cell is doing right at that moment, how it's functioning.
Exactly, and how it's responding to what's around it. For example, researchers have been using this technology to study colon cancer, and they've zeroed in on this protein called GATA6.
Oh, so GATA6 is like the troublemaker in this story.
You could say that in healthy cells, GATA6 has a job, it does, but in colon cancer cells, it kind of goes off script, starts driving the growth and spread of the tumor.
So if scientists can figure out how to stop GATA6, they could potentially halt the cancer, right?
That's the hope. The research is still early, but targeting GATA6 has had some very promising results so far.
That's incredible. It makes you wonder, are we getting closer to truly personalized cancer treatments if we can pinpoint these specific bad actors?
Absolutely. Imagine treatments tailored not just to the type of cancer, but to the very specific genetic makeup of each person's tumor. That's the potential here.
No more just using chemo to attack the whole body, but instead a precision strike right on the cancer cells.
Right. And this precision targeting could mean fewer side effects and better outcomes, but the applications of RNA sequencing go way beyond just cancer.
Right. I read about how it's being used to understand neurodevelopmental disorders like autism and epilepsy conditions that have been so hard to grasp.
And that's where it gets really exciting. RNA sequencing is helping us untangle the really complex genetics behind these disorders, identifying specific genes that might be involved in how they develop.
So instead of just managing the symptoms, we could actually start to understand what's causing these conditions at the genetic level.
Exactly. By identifying these genes, we can start to create better diagnostic tools, maybe predict who's at risk, and potentially even design gene therapies to target those specific genetic abnormalities.
It's like we finally have a map to navigate this incredibly complex territory, and the impact this could have on families dealing with these conditions. It's huge.
Absolutely. It's a game changer, and we're really just at the beginning of what RNA sequencing can do.
And I understand AI is playing a big role in all of this.
AI and bioinformatics, they're the perfect pair. AI can sift through these massive data sets from RNA sequencing experiments, finding patterns and insights that we as humans just couldn't.
So it's like having a super-powered research assistant that never gets tired of crunching numbers.
Exactly. For example, AI is being used to figure out the best way to analyze data from this technique called HiSTR, which lets us study the 3D structure of DNA.
Hold on, 3D structure of DNA, it's getting pretty complex.
Think of it this way. DNA isn't just a long straight line. It folds and loops in really complex ways inside the cell's nucleus, and this 3D structure is key to how genes are actually controlled.
Got it. So AI is helping us not just to see which genes are active, but how their actual physical arrangement in the cell is impacting what they do.
Precisely. And this understanding is opening up entirely new paths for discovering and developing new drugs.
Like this retrosynthesis process I read about.
Exactly. AI-driven retrosynthesis is transforming pharmaceutical research. Imagine, instead of randomly testing millions of compounds, AI can analyze a molecule and work backwards to design the most efficient way to create it.
We're talking about designing drugs with precision, like using a scalpel instead of a hammer, creating medicines that are more effective, have fewer side effects, and maybe even cost less to produce.
And potentially better for the environment, too. AI can help us design processes that use fewer resources and create less waste.
That's amazing. So AI is not only helping us understand diseases better, it's helping us develop smarter, safer, and more sustainable ways to treat them.
And this is just the tip of the iceberg. The potential of AI and bioinformatics is really unlimited.
It feels like we're on the verge of a whole new era in medicine, with AI and RNA sequencing leading the charge. And this isn't happening in some far-off future. This research is happening right now.
It's an amazing time of discovery.
And it seems like every new discovery just opens up even more possibilities.
Yeah.
My mind is officially blown. But before we get lost in the future, let's bring it back to the present and really unpack some of these breakthroughs.
Sounds good. Let's dive in.
Starting with that GATA6 research in colon cancer. What makes this discovery so promising?
I think what makes the GATA6 discovery so exciting is that it seems to be very specific to the cancer cells themselves. In healthy colon tissue, it does its normal job, regulates genes that control cell growth and all that. But in colon cancer, it basically gets stuck in the on position and just keeps telling those cells to multiply out of control.
So it's not just that it's there, it's how it's behaving in those cancer cells.
It's exactly, which makes it a really interesting target for therapy. Could we develop a drug that just stops the overactive GATA6 in the tumor cells without messing with its normal function in healthy cells? That's the challenge.
That would be a game changer for cancer treatment. Less damage, fewer side effects. It sounds almost too good to be true.
It is a tough challenge, but the early research is promising. There have been studies showing that inhibiting GATA6 in colon cancer cells really shrinks those tumors both in the lab and in animal models.
That's encouraging. And this research could have implications beyond just colon cancer, right?
Right. GATA6 is part of a whole family of proteins called transcription factors. They're like master regulators of gene expression, and they're found in all sorts of tissues.
So if we can learn how to manipulate these transcription factors, could we potentially develop these kinds of targeted therapies for other cancers too?
That's the hope. Researchers are already looking at the role of GATA6 in other cancers like pancreatic cancer and breast cancer, and it seems like it might be a major player in those as well.
So this one discovery could open up whole new avenues for treating all sorts of cancer. That's huge.
It's a really exciting area of research. We're just starting to understand how powerful these master regulators of genes really are.
You mentioned earlier that RNA sequencing is also helping us understand these complex neurodevelopmental disorders. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, for years, researchers have been trying to understand the genetics behind things like autism and epilepsy. They're complex. You have multiple genes involved, and then you throw in environmental factors. It gets really complicated.
So it's not just one gene causing one disorder.
No, it's more like a network of genes all interacting and contributing to the risk. And RNA sequencing is letting us map that network in incredibly fine detail.
And that's leading to new insights into what's causing these disorders.
Definitely, for example, in autism, RNA sequencing has helped identify these specific patterns of gene expression in the brain that are different in people with autism compared to those without.
Like genetic signatures for these conditions?
Exactly. And those signatures help us understand what's happening biologically. For instance, one study using RNA sequencing found that a pathway involved in brain cell communication is disrupted in people with autism.
So it's not just finding the genes, it's understanding how they work together and how their expression changes in these disorders.
Exactly. And this knowledge opens the door to developing more targeted and effective treatments. Imagine if we could identify children at risk for autism based on their genes and start interventions early.
Instead of waiting for symptoms, we could be proactive and potentially change the trajectory of the disorder. That would be incredible.
That's the goal. It's not just about managing symptoms. It's about understanding the root cause and developing therapies that address that. And RNA sequencing is giving us the tools to do that.
And AI is playing a big part in accelerating this research.
AI is critical for analyzing the enormous amount of data that comes from RNA sequencing. It's like looking for a needle in a haystack, but with mountains of haystacks.
So AI helps us sift through all that data and find the important bits.
Exactly. AI algorithms can spot patterns and connections that we'd never see. They can analyze gene expression data from thousands of people and find the subtle differences that set those with a particular disorder apart.
And that helps us identify new drug targets and personalized treatments.
Absolutely. For example, AI is being used to analyze RNA sequencing data from people with epilepsy to find specific genes and pathways that aren't working properly.
And knowing that could lead to drugs that specifically target those pathways.
Right. AI is also being used to predict which people with epilepsy are most likely to respond to certain medications based on their genes, leading to more personalized treatment plans.
It's amazing that we can use AI to look at someone's DNA and predict how they'll respond to a drug.
It really is. AI is revolutionizing drug discovery. We can create more targeted and effective therapies with fewer side effects.
And it's not just about new drugs, it's about finding new uses for old drugs, too. I read about how AI is being used to identify new applications for existing medications based on how they affect gene expression.
That's right. AI can look at huge databases of drug info and RNA sequencing data and find drugs that might be effective for a certain disease, even if they were originally meant for something else entirely.
So a drug for high blood pressure might actually be effective in treating a neurodevelopmental disorder.
Exactly. It's like finding hidden gems in our medicine cabinet, and AI is the key.
The possibilities are
It's
mind-boggling.
such a fast-moving field, we're just scratching the surface.
Earlier, we talked about AI being used in this process called retrosynthesis. Can you explain a bit more about how that works?
Imagine you're a chef creating a new dish. You wouldn't just throw random ingredients together. You'd think about the flavors and textures you want in the final dish, and then work backwards figuring out what ingredients you need and how to combine them.
So retrosynthesis is like reverse engineering a drug.
Exactly. Traditional drug discovery is often about testing millions of compounds, randomly hoping to find one that works. Retrosynthesis starts with the drug we want to create the target molecule and figures out the most efficient way to build it from scratch.
And AI is essential to this process.
AI algorithms can look at the structure of the target molecule and identify potential building blocks or precursors. Then they can figure out the reactions needed to combine those precursors and the best conditions for those reactions.
So AI is acting like a super chemist guiding the whole drug discovery process.
Precisely. AI can analyze huge amounts of chemical data, find patterns that human chemists might miss, and predict the best ways to synthesize the drug.
That sounds like it could speed up drug discovery significantly and maybe even lead to new drugs for diseases that are currently incurable.
That's the hope. AI-driven retrosynthesis has already shown a lot of promise in developing new antibiotics, antivirals, and cancer therapies. It's a powerful tool that could revolutionize the pharmaceutical industry.
It's incredible to think about the impact on human health. We could potentially cure diseases that were once considered hopeless.
It's truly an exciting time to be in this field.
And the applications of AI in bioinformatics just keep expanding. It's hard to keep up.
It's moving so fast, and the pace of innovation is only increasing.
I remember reading about how AI is being used to assess and maybe even alleviate something called state anxiety in these large language models like ChatGPT. Can you tell us about that?
It's a really interesting area of research that shows just how complex these AI systems are getting, these large language models like ChatGPT. They're trained on tons of text data and can generate very human-like text, but as they get more powerful, they can start to show behaviors that kind of look like human emotions, even anxiety.
Wait, are you saying that AI can feel anxious?
It's not exactly the same as human anxiety, but these models can get stuck in these loops, generate nonsensical text, or do other things that remind us of anxiety in AI. It's called state anxiety, and it can really limit how well these models perform.
So researchers are basically teaching AI how to chill out.
You could say that they're developing techniques to measure and reduce the state anxiety in these models, analyzing the patterns of language and behavior that go along with anxiety, and then creating algorithms that can identify and correct those patterns.
Like therapy for AI.
That's a great way to put it. Just like human therapists help their patients manage anxiety, AI researchers are creating tools to help language models overcome their own anxieties.
It's wild to think that we're developing therapies for the machines we create.
It really highlights the blurring lines between human and artificial intelligence.
And raises some ethical questions, too, about what intelligence really is and the responsibility we have as creators of these increasingly sophisticated AI.
Definitely, as AI becomes more powerful and more integrated into our lives, it's crucial that we think about the ethics and make sure these systems are developed and used responsibly. It's amazing how fast it's all changing.
It really makes you think about the potential and maybe some of the challenges that come along with such powerful advancements.
Definitely, like with any new powerful technology, we need to think about the ethical and societal implications.
One thing that's really stood out to me throughout this conversation is just how personalized everything is becoming in medicine. You know, it's not just a one-size-fits-all approach anymore. It's about tailoring treatments to each person's specific genes.
That's really the core of precision medicine, and it's changing how we think about healthcare altogether. Imagine being able to analyze someone's DNA and predict their risk for certain diseases, recommend preventative measures, or even prescribe medications that are most likely to work for them based on their genetic makeup.
It sounds futuristic, but it's becoming a reality thanks to these advancements in bioinformatics and RNA sequencing.
And AI is a huge part of making it happen. AI algorithms can analyze mountains of genetic data, find those hidden patterns, and make predictions that would be impossible for humans to do on their own.
That's like every doctor has a super intelligent medical consultant at their fingertips.
Exactly. And as AI keeps learning and evolving, it's going to get even better at diagnosing diseases, predicting outcomes, and personalizing treatment plans.
So what does all this mean for the average person? How will these advancements actually impact our lives in the near future?
Well, I think we're going to see a big shift toward preventative medicine. As genetic testing becomes more affordable and accessible, people will be able to learn more about their own genetic risks and take steps to stay healthy.
So instead of waiting for symptoms, we can be proactive and try to prevent diseases from developing in the first place.
Exactly. And if someone does get sick, treatment will be much more personalized and effective. Doctors will be able to choose the best medication and the right dose based on the patient's genes, minimizing side effects and increasing the chances of a good outcome.
It sounds like we're on the verge of a revolution in healthcare, where technology empowers us to take control of our own health and well-being.
I think that's exactly right. We're entering a new era of medicine, one that's data-driven, powered by AI, and focused on the individual.
It's an exciting time to be alive, and bioinformatics and RNA sequencing are leading the way.
These technologies aren't just changing medicine, they're changing how we understand life itself, giving us amazing insights into the inner workings of our cells, our genes, our bodies.
And we're only at the beginning of this incredible journey of discovery.
Absolutely, the most exciting discoveries are yet to come.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the fascinating world of bioinformatics and RNA sequencing.
It's been a pleasure.
And to our listeners, we hope this has been as thought-provoking and inspiring for you as it has been for us. Until next time, stay curious.